El pretérito fuerte, verbos con raíces irregulares. The strong preterit, verbs with irregular roots. Now that we've talked about all of the small irregularities that occur in otherwise regular verbs, which is to say, what we've seen previously, changes that occur in one or two of the verb forms throughout the conjugations, but that are insignificant enough to allow us to still continue using regular AR conjugations and regular ERI conjugations, we need to move on and talk about real irregular verbs in the preterit. Now, the good thing about real irregular verbs in the preterit, the ones that have irregular roots, is that they have their own set of conjugations that are always constant. If you'll take note, querer's root in the preterit is quis, Q-U-I-S, which has nothing to do with the infinitive querer, and so we call it an irregular root. This root, quis, holds true throughout all of the verb forms in the preterit, Q-U-I-S. Now, the endings are the same throughout. Yo quise, tú quisiste, él, ella, usted quiso, nosotros quisimos, vosotros quisisteis, ellos quisieron. Those endings hold true for any verb that has an irregular root in the preterit. So if we move to poner now, whose irregular root is pus, P-U-S, we'll notice that it has the same endings. Yo puse, tú pusiste, él, ella, usted puso, nosotros pusimos, vosotras pusisteis, and ellos, ellas, ustedes pusieron. And the same is the case for saber, which also has an irregular root. Supe, supe, supiste, supo, supimos, supistes, and supieron. Now, the things that we need to remember about los pretéritos fuertes son los siguientes. A. Todos estos verbos mantienen un raíz irregular en todas sus formas. All of these verbs maintain an irregular root in all of their forms. B. No hay tilde en ninguna de las formas. There is not an accent mark in any of the forms. In the regular AR-IR verbs, we had accent marks always in the yo form and in the él, ella, usted form. En el pretérito fuerte no hay ninguna tilde. Y C. Son los verbos más comunes y por tanto los más importantes. They're the most common verbs in the language and therefore the most important. So if you think you can get by learning the preterit but not learning the irregulars, you're wrong. Algunos de los verbos comunes que toman raíces irregulares en el pretérito son: some of the common verbs that take irregular roots in the preterit are, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but at least gives you an idea, and I'll give you also the root, or I'll give you the yo form of the verb. Hacer is yo hice, querer, yo quise, venir, yo vine, estar, yo estuve, andar, yo anduve, tener, yo tuve, poder, yo pude, poner, yo puse, saber, yo supe, decir, yo dije, traer, yo traje, and conducir, yo conduje. And finally, haber, which is not very commonly seen in the preterit, but I'll give it to you nonetheless, would be yo hube, H-U-B-E. And you can refer to these conjugations and learn a little bit more about los pretéritos fuertes on pages 10 to 13, páginas 10 a 13 en el libro de texto Buen Viaje. Ahora que hemos hablado de los tres grupos de terminaciones de verbos en el pretérito, los regulares AR, los regulares ER-IR y los pretéritos fuertes, tenemos que hablar de los cuatro verbos que no caben en ninguna de estas categorías. Now that we've talked about the three verb conjugation categories in the preterit, the regular ARs, the regular ER-IRs, and the pretéritos fuertes, the strong preterits, we have to talk about the four remaining verbs in the Spanish language that don't fit into these three categories. And those verbs are, estos verbos son ir, ser, dar, y ver. Now these are really easy to learn because there are three convenient things about them. Primero, no hay tilde en ninguna forma. There is no accent mark in any verb form of these four verbs. Segundo, ir y ser son idénticos. Ir es yo fui, tú fuiste, él, ella, usted fue, nosotros fuimos, vosotros fuisteis, and ellos fueron. Ser is exactly the same. So ir, to go, and ser, to be, are distinguished in the preterite only by context, which isn't too difficult since those are rather different meanings. Now, dar and ver are also very easy to conjugate. Again, no accent marks in any of them, and the only difference between the two is the initial letter. You put a D when you're conjugating dar, and a V when conjugating ver. So you have yo di, tú diste, él, ella, usted dio, dimos, distes, dieron. And likewise for ver, you have yo vi, tú viste, él, ella, usted vio, nosotros vimos, and vosotras visteis, and finally ellos vieron. These are the only 4 verbs that don't fit into any of the prior 3 categories that we've talked about. Lastly, I just want to make you aware of a couple of excellent references for you to double check your verb conjugations. First is wordreference.com. Wordreference.com is primarily a dictionary, as you can see here. I simply type in the word I need to know what it means, like ir, for example, and word reference will tell me that ir means to go in English. Now, if I wanted to see its conjugations, you can see I have several options here. I could see a definition in Spanish, synonyms, its conjugations. I could get it in French and Portuguese if I wanted. I just click on conjugator, and it gives me an entire list. Here's the preterite, which we were just talking about. The other of the 2 resources is something very similar, but it's a little bit more limited. Verbix, which we're looking at now, is simply a verb conjugator. So we'll use the same example, ir, type it in, and Verbix will give us a printout of what all of the conjugations of ir are. And here we have it. Again, the preterite that we were just talking about, here they're calling it the preterite perfect simple, which is a fancy way of saying the exact same thing, and you could double check all of the verbs in your writing this way. Very quick, very easy, and there's no reason for you to be guessing at correct verb forms in your writing when you can check them this quickly and easily. This has been a production of La Plaza Mayor Spanish Language Tutorials, and I'm Mr. Jason Cummings. The sound loop for this recording is provided by username AudioFruit from soundsnap.com.